second? Good evening. If I could call the meeting to order, please, at 6:33 p.m. If I could have your help for a roll call, please.
Yes, Chair. On the roll call for the measures B, J, and Y, Independent Citizens School Facilities Bond Oversight Committee meeting for February 9th, 2026. Member Davis.
I'm here.
Member Butler is absent. Member Jones III.
Present.
Member Clark is absent. Secretary Dawson.
Here.
Vice Chair Nelson.
Here.
And Chair Gonzalez.
Here.
Quorum present.
Thank you.
And the interpretation.
Okay. We're going to have a check for the interpreters.
Yes, Chair. So for tonight's meeting, we have one language available for live interpretation. It is Spanish. We also have a translation closed caption feature available on Zoom that you can use by clicking the closed caption icon on your Zoom taskbar. With that, we will move on to announcements of live interpretation. It is Spanish. I will lower all attendees' hands on Zoom. Please only raise your hand if you need the language that's being announced at this time, which is Spanish. And I will ask Mr. De La Torre if you can come off the mute and get the interpretation announcement for Spanish.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you. Good evening. Buenas tardes. Mi nombre es Andrés de la Torre. Esta junta cuenta con interpretación al español. Si ustedes necesitan interpretación al español, por favor levanten la mano para que se proporcione el servicio. Una vez que se proporcione el servicio, ustedes van a ver en su pantalla un globo terráqueo. Háganle clic, presionen y busquen español. De esa manera nos van a poder escuchar en español. Por favor, si necesitan español, levanten su mano para que puedan activar el servicio. Gracias. Spanish is done. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, never mind. It's we got it. I do see people's hands raised online, so we will start with Spanish interpretation. That concludes our announcement for Spanish interpretation. We may make another announcement later on in the meeting, and I pass it back to you, Chair Gonzalez.
Thank you. We could go now to, I assume that everyone who is going to speak have spilled out their speaker request cards. Here, those present? Okay. Shall move to item D, adoption of the committee minutes. I would like to entertain a motion to adopt both sets of minutes, 260285, minutes from January 12th, and 260343 from the bond oversight visit on February 6th. If I could have a motion to that effect so we could move both minutes at once.
I will motion.
Okay, do I have a second? No. All right. 26, thank you. 260285, minutes for January 12th. Do we have any corrections, additions? Hearing none, can I have a motion to move those minutes?
So moved.
All right, second?
Second.
All right. I have Andy Nelson and Andrea. Okay.
Can I just say, Chair, I wasn't here, but if you guys will vouch for the accuracy of the minutes, I know we need my vote to pass them, so.
Yes.
I'll vote for it, even though usually I would abstain since I wasn't present for the meeting, but I trust you guys, so I'll go along with it.
I would very much appreciate that. Thank you. Could we vote on it now?
Yes. So just to double check. We do not have any public speakers for D.-1. So go ahead and proceed with the vote.
Okay.
On the motion to approve the January 12, 2026 Measures BJNY Committee meeting minutes, Member Davis?
Yes.
Member Butler is absent. Member Jones III?
Yes.
Member Clark is absent. Secretary Dawson?
Yes.
Vice Chair Nelson?
Yes.
Chair Gonzalez?
Yes.
Minutes are adopted.
All right. On D2, 260343, this is minutes from the, our visit out to the school on last Friday. Are there any additions, corrections to the minutes? If anyone would please care to advise.
I just have a clarification. So is this a time that we would say something about our site visit, or is there another time that on the agenda?
There is an item on the agenda for individual members' site visits report,
Yeah,
if you will.
okay.
So
All
there
right.
is for that.
Okay, I motion to adopt.
I'll second.
Yes, for the record, there are no public members to speak on this item. So proceeding with the vote on the motion to approve the February 6, 2026 Measures BJNY Facilities Committee meeting minutes, special meeting minutes. On the motion, Member Davis?
Yes, I was there, so I can say yes with all confidence.
Member Butler is absent. Member Jones III?
Yes.
Member Clark is absent. Secretary Dawson?
Yeah.
Vice Chair Nelson?
Yes. Yes.
And Chair Gonzalez? Yes. Minutes are approved.
Thank you. We have, going to item D, there is none, adoption of the committee general consent report, and on item F, unfinished business, we have none. So we then turn to new business. I believe we have a presentation on Garfield Elementary School Bond Measure Y. This is item 25-1678.
All right. Good evening. Preston Thomas, the Chief Systems and Services Officer. We're going to be walking through, you have been over time been getting updates around the Garfield project. This is we're proposing a shift in scope and wanted to make sure that CBOC was aware of that as we're moving forward, so you can give feedback and a recommendation to the Facilities Committee, and then it would be moving on to the full board. So today is an update on the overall Garfield project with some pending changes. So I'm going to skip through some of these because you've seen these slides very many times, but we're going to hit a project overview and a status update, why we're pivoting in terms of scope that's based on some of the challenges with the Garfield project itself, a vision for the future, a full site redevelopment. So I'll steal the punchline that we are asking for a full rebuild of the Garfield project based on some of the structural findings that we've had. And then some next funding strategy and a budget update, and then next steps as we move forward. So I'm going to walk through some of these pieces, and please feel free, either to stop me and ask questions about it, or if you'd like me to go through the full presentation and then entertain questions, we're here. Are there folks online? The team is online as well to answer any specific technical questions you might have about the project. Okay. So, you have been seeing the project one-pagers, and if you want to go back to a reminder around these things, these are all posted online, so if you want to go back and review previous, project updates, this is going to be a different take on the current project. So one of the things I want to go through the history of the budget. Initially, when this project was scoped out in 2018, The original budget for this project was $56.7 million. And one of the things that is, you'll see in the new master plan, those things weren't indexed to inflation by itself, right? And so those numbers kind of move forward as the project budget, and it was significantly insufficient from the beginning. And I just want to name that. We did ask for, so that's one piece. We did ask for, based on some of the escalation, an increase in budget that it went up to $70.7 million, and that was happening in the revised spending plan. One of the things that we noticed, and I think this is really important for CBOC to, and if you go back to grand jury reports and even before, you'll notice a lot of our major projects run over budget. One of the reasons when you're constrained by budget that this happens often is, I just want you to notice the actual planning, design, what sometimes is referred to as soft costs. We've underestimated the amount of soft costs needed to do the project. And we've updated those numbers to be 27.5%, which is kind of a tracking average for the district across all the, inspections, permits, design costs, and things of that nature. Then you see the construction budget. And in each of those budgets, I just want to note that we would have been coming back for more money, right? The initial budget looked like it was 2.9 million over budget. And even after the revision to 70.7, it was still over budget by 5.4 million. So there were some fundamental underlying issues with the project, and that's before we even get into the structural issues. So I just want to name that, and you'll see us trying to move more towards standardization around soft costs that are based on previous major modernizations so that we have the best information moving forward. So here's an important part of when you're doing any major modernization or a rebuild, you want to look at how you're spending your construction dollars. So if you look at the construction budget, there was deep, and I'm going to go into depth on each of these points, there were deep structural rehabilitation that was needed at the site, particularly in the concrete shear walls and the footings for the school. And I think you even saw some of this with the micropiles at the walkthrough at the Roosevelt project as well. That would have taken between 20 to 25 million, which is about 50 to 62% of your construction costs. That's a significant portion towards just structural rehabilitation of the site. There was a high cost of temporary, and we did share this out, there was a high cost of temporary housing that was associated with the cost of the mobile modular units that would have taken up about 31.25% of the construction budget. Then because of that, you had a limited amount of money that was left for the modernization of the educational spaces within the school. So that accounted for about 18.75% of that construction budget. You're not spending a lot in the current design of that project around improving the educational spaces for kids. The other thing is, because of those compromises, it was not aligned to the board's sustainability policy. And there'll be a slide where we talk through what those elements would be. So we're going to go a little bit in deeper on some of these things, and we can come back to them if you have specific questions. So one of the things here is that this is just an image that shows kind of the structural issues that were associated with the site and the significant cost that was associated with addressing those. And so that's one element, just to show some of the details that the architectural team and the design team was working on. And one of the things that we did with this project is around the pre-construction services to go in and get a little more deep in terms of like what are some of the issues that there was significant risk around upside on costs to address these structural issues. So the second one was a temporary housing, and just this was in order to do work within the building itself, you have to move the student population to off-site into mobile units that would be there for short term. At the end of the project, those modular units would be returned and you'd reoccupy the building. The new plan does not require any investment in interim housing because they will stay in the main building until it is completed, and then they'll move into the new building. So just as we're walking through the future budget, just remember this slide, because this is a reinvestment in the school. There were certain ed spec compromises, so, essentially some key areas, the multipurpose room was not to be touched. So it would not add additional spaces for after-school programming, things of that nature. There were no pre-K or TK programming. There was one preschool class and one TK class that were included within the project, but it would not build the full continuum of supports for families in the neighborhood. And then, one of the things was there were other compromises as well within the education specs that the district has recently adopted. So you wouldn't meet all of those specifications because there wasn't enough money to really invest in those areas. And then the fourth part of this is really sustainability compromises. There is the board's sustainability policy, but there's also Title 24 that's required when you're going into construction. The modernization on the left, all of the areas would have been significantly deficient in terms of meeting those areas. And on the right, if you move to new construction, you get to address all of those with new construction. So you could see kind of that there were a lot of trade-offs in the initial modernization budget. So I'm going to pause right there. If you'd like me to answer any specific questions about those four variables, we can do that, or I can continue on through the rest of the presentation and we can close with questions. Okay, great. So one of the things that we had been in dialogue with and in development of the master plan, but also thinking about like the expansion with universal pre-K at the state level, which has funding for TK. We were looking for opportunities to find and invest early childhood dollars. And so one of the things as you see this map, the blue areas on the left show future. That's current students between 0 and 4. And I just want you to notice that Garfield is right at the right end of the 2 in District 2. And you can see it sits in between two highly dense areas in District 2 and District 5. So it would end up serving future growth in the district that would be served by that campus specifically. And on the right, you see those are the transitional kindergarten seats that we have significant wait list for across the city. And so it does provide additional access to transitional kindergarten in that neighborhood in specific. So what that would do is we came up with a proposal to Oakland Children's Initiative and First Five about potentially expanding the TK and pre-K seats at this site. So it becomes kind of a cornerstone of early childhood in between District 2 and District 5. And that would expand the program out to including 7 TK and pre-K seats within that school. And when you're building a new building, it's a building for the next 50 years. So here's the revised project scope. We sat down with the community and we talked about potential different options for the way that this could be configured if we moved in this direction. And like, if you noticed, there were different configurations that were explored. What ultimately ended up being the option that was the best for the community was the option 4 on the bottom right-hand side, which essentially places the new building on what's currently the field and then relocates the field to the other side so that you have full use of the lower part of that parcel. So here's what that would look like and this is the design that we're currently exploring with the architectural team and the design team, is that you would have a preschool first floor on the upper part of this. I'm just going to upper and lower. There's a dedicated area for preschool and preschool drop-off. There's a family resource center and a library on the lower, and we'll go into more details around it. And then the entire first floor on the lower side would be transitional kindergarten and kindergarten classes on the first floor, right? The NPR, if you notice on the right, yep.
Just for reference.
So Foothill is
23rd Avenue,
Yep.
Foothill.
Yep.
22nd, or yeah, and then up above. Okay.
What's the street up? East 17.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it's a two-story building?
It would be a two-story building. It would be a two-story. So the current drop-off location is if you're coming up 23rd, is that 23rd or 22nd? 23rd? 22nd? 22nd is on the 22nd Street side, and that would change to being along that street and towards the front. So it would have a dedicated drop-off area on the other side, on East 17th. That's right. And you would have dedicated entry zones. So the top portion of it would be for the preschool entry. The bottom side of it would be for TK and kindergarten entry. And the front, where it's the entry plaza, would be where upper grade level students would come through the front. So there'd be 3 discrete entryways so that you would have different drop-offs for the different age groups. So that's generally one of the also things that we have tried to incorporate here is the parking situation in that area. Very few of our campuses have integrated parking into the school design, and we would add parking so that there was on-campus parking for the school site. This is very rare for elementary schools, but that was definitely one of the things that we had heard from neighbors about just like kind of the overall burden of cars within the neighborhood. Other questions? Good? Okay. So one of the things that you're going to see is this is kind of the layout, and this configuration matches cohorts of students moving all the way through the school. So 3 preschool classes that move into 4 TK because the class size is a little bit smaller at TK, into 3 full kindergarten classes that move to 1st grade, 2nd grade, 3rd grade, all the way through 5th. And as you know, there's an investment in Roosevelt right now as a project, and then they would be transitioning into Roosevelt, which is maybe like 6 to 8 blocks away from the Garfield campus. So what you're seeing is on the left, we would build in 2 continuums of special day classes for students with special needs that's designed into the program. So that is something that you will hear a lot from folks about not being adequately staffed. Each one would have restrooms between the 2 SDC classes to make it a little easier to serve the students in those spaces. You would also have, this is really good timing because of the, Prop 28 funding. You would have art and music classes dedicated to the elementary school so they can program that within. A library, administrative offices, and a family resource center that serves the community. Just on the right, anytime you're going to the Office of Public School Construction, they have their own loading guidelines that are essentially 27-to-1 for every classroom space. But programmatically, it is going to hold fewer students because we're dedicating 2 of the classrooms towards music and art. 4 of the classrooms are being dedicated towards SDC programming, so it reduces your overall capacity. So just wanted to name that as as we're thinking about how we're doing capacity analysis in the district. So here is a slide that shows kind of the proposed campus replacement. This is where you can start to see where those classrooms would be laid out, how the administration building would be structured, how the library space would be structured. But you get a lot more added benefit to the overall program. And this is, I think, actually something the community originally wanted, where they were looking for a full rebuild, and the budget didn't allow for that. And you can see some of the restrooms in between some of the classrooms and things of that nature. Okay, so here is how the funding stack, and I'll just get into like how do we get up to the full project. 1, it is committed, and when we bring it to the Facilities Committee meeting, we will have acknowledgement from First 5 around the commitment to support the construction for this, and definitely that is something that will be in part of the packet if the Facility Committee approves it and moves on to the full board. And additional funding from other resources. We are going to foreshadow what those resources are here, but those are facilities, those will come to the Facilities Committee on the 19th for review and their consideration. One of the things that we were really tight about is we did not want to use any other bond funds that were dedicated in Measure Y to address the shortfall to get there. So the 18 million is coming from Oakland Children's Initiative to expand their early childhood investments. The other estimated 14.8 million is coming from other capital funds, but not necessarily the bond funds. And I'll walk through that right now. I just want to name one thing before we get in this, and I'm going to always preface with this slide. The initial bond allocations, as we even talked about at the beginning, that initial bond allocation is probably your roughest estimate of how much the project's going to cost. As we go through these phases, we get tighter and tighter numbers as we're going through it. We are at that place, we're at design development. So these numbers are much better, but they're still not the final numbers that you're going to see for the overall project. So there is contingencies that are built in there, but I do want to just name, as most of the major projects right now are in DSA, we'll get our best estimate as to how much they're going to cost when they come out of DSA. I just want to name that. And when we're finally bid, that kind of locks in the cost, particularly on a lease-leaseback or the progressive design build methodologies that we're using. So I just want to put this up where we are in the journey. So here is what we're estimating at the full project. It would be $28.5 million in the planning, design, and project oversight, but the construction budget would go up to $75 million. The total project cost is $103.5 million. And so how is that going to be funded? So out of the Measure Y already board-approved budget, that's $70.7 million. Oakland Children's Initiative committed funding is between 18 and 19. We took the lower side until they've allocated the money, 18 million. Then from developer fees, because there's portable replacements that are happening, and it's an expansion of program, and in an area where they're growing developments, there's $5 million that we would be dedicating out of developer fees, which is Fund 25, and the state reimbursement fund would dedicate $9.8 million to the project. So that would bring the project up to $103.5 million in total. And that would be the new project budget that would be incorporated into the spending plan. This is where we are in design, just to give timeline. In design development, and we're expecting that to be completed through Q4 to Q2. So that's in the second quarter of 2026. So we would finish this in June. The construction documents would be completed between Q2 and Q4, which is the second half of next year. And the approvals, which would come in Q4 of 2026 into 2027. And then one of the advantages of doing a rebuild where it's on site, you would be able to actually start construction much quicker. And we're looking at a tentative move-in date of Q3 of 2028. So demo and site work to the main building would happen after that move-in date, and the full project would be completed by Q2 of 2029. Next steps, we're here to share with you all this. We'll be bringing it to the Facilities Committee, and tentatively it's scheduled to come to the March 11th board meeting.
Questions? All right. Okay, go.
Well, I'm going to go backwards okay, I'm going to go backwards just because you show approval at the second quarter of 2027, but you show you're starting construction in the first quarter. Is that true? Because you can't start without DSA approval. That's a fact.
I apologize. Yeah, that's, I mean,
So,
it depends on where it lands, where the approval happens, and to where it would start. But absolutely, it would start following, the latest it could be is Q2 of 2027.
of
That window,
new
it's a window.
construction. Okay.
Essentially the approval,
Yeah.
the DSA approval.
Okay.
And the earliest we're anticipating would be new construction could begin in Q1 of 2027.
So, and
Yeah, and do you want to hear from the design team? They're online, I just can't see them because I don't have the link.
well, I mean, I just, they should line up. I mean, because it depends, are you doing, what kind of contract are you doing for the new construction? Is there lease, what is the method? Huh?
It is a lease-leaseback.
Okay. So you should be able to be bidding and be ready to go the next day after it gets DSA approval,
Yes.
if you're doing it that way.
Yes.
So those could line up.
Yep.
I agree. So, That's one thing.
These
And
were
then-
windows, generally windows.
And then I'm just gonna smile and say, I looked at the rendering right here, and it looks like it's got a lot of glass. And I just want to caution, how are we gonna contain design and construction, design costs? Because, you know, the architect needs to design to the budget versus like come up with some things that might be wonderful and beautiful, like the all glass of coal, but it's not practical and it's not cost effective. So that's really just a comment.
Yeah,
But-
can I just, also, these were very, very early schematic
Okay.
designs of what's possible, like, and I think we could definitely the hope is by the Facilities Committee meeting, we would have more, like, tight renderings of what the building would look like.
And then I'll just say my last comment is, I'm trying to understand why this has taken such a long time to determine new construction versus existing, because the way I know from my experience in the business, it works, is you hire the architect, and they immediately, the first thing they do is the dirt and the structural, to determine if it's gonna be a mandatory seismic upgrade with Division of State Architect. So I think if they had a good structural, they knew that pretty early on. So then they come to the district and they say, folks, here's what we can do this, or we can give you a conceptual design right now for a new building, because in consideration, and we've looked at this plan, and they're really the drivers of where you put that building on this campus. I mean, they came with, the communities, you know, had wonderful things to say, but basically, they know the best place to put this, cost-effective wise and circulation and all that. So I don't understand why, because normally what you do is do the two, you have two estimators that don't talk to each other, that estimate both ideas, and then you bring it and you decide right then, instead of going down the road of design development on the existing building, because it seems to me that you've done a lot of design and development, because when I look at the new contract, you're giving Watraki Cock $2.5 million more, which is a big number, 8.5 million, when you compare it to the cost of the architect on other projects. So I'm just trying to understand how we contained and guided that, because it seems like we've taken a long time to get to this spot here. That's my comments.
All right.
I mean, I can say this, and I don't know if somebody online wants to speak about it. There was a moment where I think one of the things that Oakland historically has been constrained by budget, right? Like in trying to fit projects within the budget. There was a moment where the team was definitely moving forward on the modernization and got to a point where there were just real issues that were emerging. And there was a meeting that, very much the way that you described, where it was lifted up that this was not, you know, the challenges that the project was going to face were significant. And at that point, I don't know if there's somebody that wants, David, yeah, if David Colbert is online so he can speak to that.
Can the room hear me?
We can hear you now.
Oh, perfect. Thank you. I've been trying to speak the entire time when Andrea was talking. No, thanks, Preston. I was hoping that you would chime in terms of Andrea, to that point, we hit a point in the department where we hit a fundamental shift in how we would like to do projects moving forward. To your point, we kind of recognized early on that this would be a financial challenge due to the information that was coming back. And the architects did let us know, in conjunction to just us knowing that the better decision would be is to pause and look at what it would take to do where we are now. So it may seem like it took a while to come back to you all, but we've been working very hard which is why we actually have a pretty good schedule in terms of some timelines that we're going to meet. But we wanted to make sure that and Preston, you can chime in on this. A big part of why we needed to kind of make sure we had to secure some funding opportunities to make sure that we would even have the opportunity to pursue it financially, knowing where we were with the deficit. So there are a lot of factors in terms of why it took what it took, but we are definitely moving at an accelerated pace.
I'm just going to say, I could say a lot more about this, but I still feel like once you hit that roadblock early on, then you put it on the table, and because time is money. And so I think that doing the modernization was, once everybody recognized it was already going to cost more than the budget that was already there because of just construction costs right now. So then it should have been, what do we do? Like, do we put everything on pause? So we're not going to pay the architect any more money than we have to, because the way I look at it is, even if it was only $1 million more that we could have saved, that would have fixed a lot of restrooms. That's the way I always look at things. Okay, so it might have meant that you do it at a slower pace, and some of the funding you would have to say, how are we going to do this? We're going to wait until the next bond to finish it, and we're going to do a phase of it, and we're not going to do, say, the TK part. We're going to add that on later, and we're going to go out for a bond sooner. I mean, it's hard like conversations to have, but I mean, when I saw this, I just thought, wow, it's taken this long to get here, and we got pretty far along on spending money on redoing the existing building.
Sam and then Andy?
Well, I definitely share Andrew's concerns just about the speed, but I remember actually, so first, there's a little bit of PTSD even coming into this space again, but it is one of my proudest moments as a school board member, was that moment where, I was chair of the Facilities Committee and staff came to me and said, hey, let's just take Garfield off because these other projects are all costing a lot more money. Let's just put Garfield off to the side. And I think it was, to your credit, Preston, you came, I was like, no, we got to finish Mac, CCPA, Garfield, and Roosevelt. Like, those all need to completely happen. And you helped work with me to actually adjust the spending plan so that all 4 projects could be fully funded. So that's to your credit, and is very meaningful to me to come back. I've been out of the loop for a year, to come back. And I also just recently joined the OCI Commission. So in both places, I'm getting to see, I was like, Garfield. So it's really meaningful to see the 2 funding streams braided to actually make this successful. So that's a huge win. I had heard some alarm bells around some of the different directions the design was going in, and that's not feasible, and so I think I hear what Andrew is saying in terms of, was there a way to kind of get to this new construction solution quicker? I think the questions I had, what's the capacity of I see the new building is 676, so what's the current capacity? B, just if you could talk a little bit about the city, is that city property that it's going to be built on, and how are we dealing with that? And then, I think those are my 2. Oh, just curious, what year was the original school built, if you know?
Ooh, I'm going to guess 1957. I was off by 3. Okay, so I was close. All right, I was close. There's a lot of facilities that are out there. So a couple of things. We did come back. I just want to name. We came back to CBOC in June of 2025 and identified where the issues were. And I honestly but I do want to say, having been in this role for about 2.5 years now, there were certain aspects around this project that it was clear that they were moving forward with a directive around, moving Garfield with the modernization. And it was in I would say the spring of last year, which is not that long ago, like when they really started identifying that there were significant problems with the modernization. And at that point, you know, we were already in conversation with Oakland Children's Initiative around areas of the city, and I'll name the areas of the city: District 6 with the Lockwood area, North Oakland with the Washington Early Childhood Center, and the Garfield community, because even if you look at ICS and TCN on the Cesar Chavez complex, they're not built to provide the full continuum of pre-K through TK in that area. And it is one of the most dense areas within Oakland. So that summer, and really trying to, I mean, one of the things, and you know, is it Member Dawson now? Wait, what's your role? Secretary Dawson. Okay. Sorry, it fell down. One of the things is, like, yes, you can, as a strategy, delay things until a future bond and only do part of the project at Garfield and not, but what I've heard over and over from community feedback is that, like, it is very difficult for the board and for the community to follow up on those promises that have been made over and over again. So for me, I think the biggest difficulty was not wanting to bring forward a plan to move it forward until we had identified funding that could meet the promise to the community, right? Because really we are holding the contingency. I do want to name this. There's $60 million in the contingency right now for any potential cost overruns that would be in the McClimlands Project, the Roosevelt Project, the CCPA project, the MLA project. So, like, one, trying to be conservative around it did probably create a couple months worth of delay in terms of bringing it back to you all. But, like, I do feel like we have a full funding strategy for this project that doesn't impact those other projects as well. So that's kind of my answer in terms of the timing on it. And I think actually I might be speaking out of, correct me if I'm wrong on this, but the timing would not necessarily change when students would be able to get into the building, right? Because it's going to be built off-site, deliver. It'll go faster in the new construction. The final piece around the city is, I think we have been in negotiations with the city about this. The small parcel, it's actually a very, very small parcel, and there's a lot of parcels like this across the city where there's a sliver of property, and I can even show you in the picture. It's just that front foyer, the entryway, is the city's property, and we're in conversations about how we can shift ownership of that to a different area on the property itself, or potentially do an exchange with the city that we would need to have in place before we can actually go into construction.
And just, do you know what the capacity of the current building is for number of students?
The current building, if you're using so here's the part about current capacity, right? It is simply the number of classrooms, but the classrooms aren't to the new standard size. So you have more classrooms not at the standard size of a current classroom. So I believe it's about a little over 1,000, 970-ish. So, and that doesn't include all of the services that would come with this area. Because we're using classrooms for the Family Resource Center, classrooms for the library, classrooms for lots of other different elements. Mm-hmm. Currently,
Yeah.
without the pre-K and TK, it's around 445. And there's definitely enough students in the neighborhood to support the enrollment, because only I think it's about 1 in 3 students actually attend Garfield that live in the neighborhood.
Okay, I'm going to try to go pretty quickly because I actually want to hear from the Garfield parent on the CBOC. I mean that very seriously, actually. But so I want to say a couple things. One is that I am really glad that this school is getting rebuilt. I think there's some lessons in here, not only for bond planning, for school planning, for the community to know. If you don't get your school done early in the bond, you're very much at risk of having it pushed off. And so I've seen that bond after bond. I was actually, and no smoke, but Claremont was the first project we did in this bond. Meanwhile, we have McClimlands, we have Garfield. Garfield's sitting down here about to fall apart. Worst school by facilities condition index in the district, with right now 445 kids, a very high unduplicated pupil count, like LCAP by LCAP measures, and we should to carry these kids a long time ago, and we know costs are going to go up, and so that's one comment I want to make. I want to make that for the public as well. So, how to fight and when to fight to get your schools done. The other thing I'll say is that I'm really glad. One thing I really like is the new school drop-off zones, because Garfield has had a number of pedestrian deaths over the years, more than a few really, really sad times that we've had in that community out there in front of that damn school. So I'm really happy to see that happening. The only question that I have, I think, is would like to know what impact this will have on Fund 25 and Fund 35. How much is there now? How much are we taking out? What's the impact?
Two things. Just personally, I just want to lift up the traffic situation there. While I was at Life Academy, which used to be down the street at 2111, we did have a student that also was hit. And the traffic light that's actually installed up above Life Academy came as a product of that situation. So definitely, I appreciate you lifting that up, because that is actually one of the biggest factors around drop-off at Garfield on that front street.
If I may, Leanne Schuhoster wanted to provide some comments.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry. Can you hear me? I don't.
Yeah, we can hear you.
Oh, thank you. Sorry. Thanks, David Colbert, for telling everybody. I just wanted to weigh in. I'm from Quattroki Quack Architects, and I'm the AOR on this project. I just wanted to say that the district has been really quick to pivot when they saw they waited until they got all the information. And then we worked last summer just over a very short time to come up with the new design and options, and looked at the various costs. They also brought in something that will help the cost, is having the lease-leaseback contractor online now has been very helpful in minimizing the costs of what we're planning now, including things like the glazing. They're looking at all these things as we move through the project. I just wanted to share that with you all.
Yeah, so 25 actually has been sitting, it had about a little over $22 million in it. And one of the things is that there was limited projects that would qualify for some of the developer fees. We have applied the developer fees to 3 projects: CCPA, MLA, and then this additional $5 million would be going towards Garfield. So that would leave about $2.5 million to $3 million left in developer fees. I believe Fund 35, I don't have the exact accounting, but the $9.8 million that would come out of there would leave somewhere around $15 million in Fund 35.
One follow-up on Fund 25. Is there an explicit requirement of a nexus between development in the area of the school and the use of those funds?
Yes, and one of the things is you can use also developer fees for portable replacement, because portables are associated with kind of temporary housing and replacing them with more permanent structures. So yes, and there are other conditions by which you can use developer fees. But yes, generally speaking, the growth profile and what is in the neighborhood and planned developments that the city has is a key variable around developer fees.
Yes, thank you. I have a few questions. Is it possible, can we go back to the slide? Can we go to slide 13, please?
Absolutely, yeah.
And while we're doing that, I just want to say I want to thank you for this presentation. I'm very proud of the Garfield community. The parents, the faculty, and the teachers were very involved. There's several times that there was conversations about this, so I want to make sure I uplift them. So the first thing I want to say is I want to start by appreciating your mention of not just the density in relationship to the age group of kids in this corridor, but looking at this from a perspective of where Oakland is going, right? And I'm glad we have a board member here, because a lot of times we get caught up in being reactive. And for me, it's always important to look at where Oakland is right now and where it's going, specifically as it relates to our students, right? Where are the kids most likely going to live? What areas are they going to most likely attend schools, right? So to me, that was important. So I have a first question for you. So on the right, the graphic on the right, what does that symbolize?
So that is our current wait lists for schools with TK entry. And so you could see that, definitely in districts 1 and 4, there's a significant wait list in those areas because there's no capacity to add TK in those neighborhoods. As you go down through District 6 and District 7, the dots are much smaller because there is capacity to actually add them onto current schools because they're underutilized sites.
It's just interesting to know. I'm not putting anything on it, but there's clearly a type of class thing related here. There's a socioeconomic correlation here that just caught my eye, so I'm just curious about this. It's pretty interesting. We ain't got to dig into this too much today. I want to make a quick comment before let's go to slide 16. Quick comment, I think it's important, and this is, I know Roosevelt was on the agenda, but East Oakland in particular is a very interesting, geographically speaking, because we have the flats, we have the hills, but people forget about the slopes. Right? So it's, when you look at a Garfield, when you look at a Roosevelt, even a Bret Hart, which I went to, just the grading, it's just interesting. I don't know what folks were thinking when they originally built these schools, but it's going to connect to the design here, right? So, for example, the community option here on the bottom right corner, which I'm with the community. I mean, I would prefer to keep the park, me personally, having open areas, right? And I know that I talked to the city said the park on it, park said the city on it, so I'm glad y'all figuring it out because they were confused when I talked to them. But it's interesting because how that's designed. So Garfield itself has it goes up, right? So in fact, a better picture. Let's go to slide 17 would be even better. So I'm just curious how this is going to play out, right? Having the sports field there, like that's going to have to how. Yeah. It's elevated, right? It goes up, right, into where the cafeteria is. So it's just interesting seeing this here on a two-dimensional document, but me knowing how Roosevelt actually looks. So I'm just curious on the thinking around that, right? Because there's a flat field.
Yeah. So no, I'm glad you're lifting that up. I think that if you one of the interesting things about the layout of Garfield, right, in the area that you're talking about, currently right now, you could see, it's very difficult to see on this, but do you see the dotted lines that there's a yellow dotted line that shows the outline of the current building that's on there?
Yep.
So one of the things is the architects took advantage of the flat area from that area that goes from the multi-purpose room to actually the entry. You enter into the building right there. There is a flat tier that would allow them to put the field on that area right there without too much earthwork. There's still going to be definitely some earthwork, but definitely there is a flat area kind of right there that would allow for the field. And so you could see, if you look at where the park is, kind of that area where it's that you see the FRC with the two trees right there. Yeah. That sliver right there is the city's property. That is only really the corner of the FRC and the multipurpose room is on what is the city property. We could actually and this is what we're working with the mechanisms with the city. Do we swap sides, right? That is self-contained within the property itself, right? Or do we just do a property swap with another area in Oakland that the city is looking for in terms of a property to do, so that Oakland would get the whole parcel? There's also if that sports area, and we agree with you, and this has been difficult to work out with the city, is how do you create these spaces that can be used both by the city and both by the school district? Because the use on the weekends has always been the challenge, because the monitoring and supervision that happens on the properties, that has been the biggest challenge. And the principal spoke. I just want to say that the principal at the site really wants to explore a joint partnership with the city around this. But the challenge has been that the lower park, if it's not locked, they have a lot of incursions into the school that become problematic.
Okay.
So that is some of the tensions that were lifted up from the site.
Okay, I appreciate that. Can you remind me where are the entry points again on this schematic?
Great. The entry point on the foothill side, the bottom, right where you see the kind of, there would be an entry place for TK and kindergarten drop-off that would come on that bottom area for the classrooms. And the early childhood preschool drop-off would be on the upper side. And if you're thinking about drop-off towards the corner right there of 23rd and East 17th, would be the drop-off, and first, second, third, and fourth and fifth graders would go through between the library and the administrative building. So as the building is shut, like if you think about as the school day is going on, all the fences around the perimeter are locked. You go through the administrative building to get in. So you come into the front office, and then when school is out, the exits are through that main area between the library and the admin building, where most kids will leave that way. So they're not leaving on the most busy street.
Okay, yeah, because that's a real concern. I mean, to the point of Foothill, when parents are dropping their kids off, right? You're blocking traffic. There's a bus. It's a lot. Okay, and I think there was probably one more. Where was it? Oh yeah, the last thing. So I know there was mention of during the construction phase, it's going to be reduced plan area for the students.
So, yeah, we'll talk about. This is probably the biggest factor that, and this is where the lease-leaseback and having the contractor involved in this, is that you could see the previous footprint where the construction areas are going to be. They will still have use of some of the play areas that are currently on site. And so we have to just be really clear around where those areas are going to be cordoned off to make sure that the student safety is the primary concern. That has been a constant conversation at the table, and have been assured that as we go through with this design, that we will be able to have some playground space in that middle area. That'll be figured out a little further along in the project.
Okay, I just want to note, just as a wrap up, right? Because it's obviously the students, but there's school time and then a basic after school program.
That's right.
Right, where the children are also involved. So I just want to note that out. No, thanks.
This is going to be really quick.
All right. Did you get your,
What happened to my mic? It was on. I hope we don't have to hold you to your commitment to not use bond funds again on this project. I think that's a bold statement, and I really hope that you're able to do this without coming back for bond funds.
I will say that I'm going to qualify my statement, but I think one of the things on all these projects. So let me take to where without OCI funding and additional funds around all these, let's say the original project, and that's why I showed in the original slide, you were likely going to have to go into the contingency for $5.4 million as currently designed, right? So as the current design, so I do want to say that I'm not guaranteeing that we're not going to go into the contingency, but I do feel like you do have, for the district and for the CBOC, we have been very conservative around that contingency for any additional costs that might be there. And I would say that the Garfield project may end up needing some of that contingency, but I'm hopeful that if we move quickly, we won't have to go there. Yeah.
I just want to say, I hope you really commit to the number when you get closer and value engineer things out. It may be painful, but you're going to have to value engineer and stay the course, because new construction, you shouldn't have change orders. And as long as you know what the dirt is, as long as you don't have problems with the dirt once you start construction, you're good to go. So I hope we contain the costs.
Can I comment? I think that's a really important thing. One of the things that, and you just did the walkthrough on Roosevelt, and I'm really excited to hear what you're talking about there. But there is, whenever you're doing a modernization, there are some unknown entities when you get into construction that can ramp up the prices on this. And as Secretary Dawson just named, when you know and you're going to new construction, there's a lot less unknowns that you have to have contingencies for. So I just wanted to name that. I think it is a really important point.
So I'd like to take the prerogative to make the last round of comments on this topic. And I think, to me, the important discussion is first, I think we as a group are enthused because we see a tremendous need for the families in this community to have a good school, a school that they deserve. But secondly, also, I think the caution that I think Andrea is attempting to voice has to do with us all working more collaboratively with each other to have kind of an earlier understanding of where you're at, and kind of like, what can we do to help that? You know, what can this body help if you're at a decision point to kind of raise some of these issues earlier with us so that we can kind of help with it? Maybe, I don't know, but I think, what do you as a staff learn from this experience that maybe, unfortunately, we have a lot of old buildings, and modernization versus new is going to be kind of the constant tension, because it's kind of like, gosh, we're so sick of, you can fix this, but you can't fix that, right? You can afford a 100-year section, but you can't do the 50-year section kind of thing, and it's kind of like, and yet our communities deserve more. So it seems like, you know, I guess one of the things that for us is, what do you learn from this to apply to other situations where you're going to have eeny meeny, right? Modernization, you know, you're going to maybe build from scratch, and what would facilitate, what are the decision points? So anyway, thank you very much. Really appreciate all the staff time on it and whoever else is on the line. Thank you. I think we'd like to kind of move on. This is one of the pluses. We have a lot of challenges in our community, and this is good. Yes.
Public
You have
comment?
comments? All right. We could go to that. Help us.
How much time would you like to allot for public comment?
How many commenters do we have?
One.
Oh, 3 minutes.
All right. Sada Olupalo.
All right.
That was nice of you, but that's not standard. Okay, so there should be a process, if necessary, to determine the structural issues to be included in the budget before the budget is presented, and not after you proceed to have a budget and coming back. That should not be, unless there's some unforeseen structural issues that cannot be identified. I'm concerned about a number of things. One of them is the OUSD money that you're saying is coming from the Children's Initiative. Now, they've already allocated the money for 25-26 and projected spending for 26-27. And when they allocate money to the district, they don't give it by individuals. They give you a lump sum of money. So I don't know where this $18 million specifically for Garfield is being worked through. And I haven't identified any meetings where there's been an open discussion on that. The projected enrollment, according to what they say, in order to allocate the money for 26-27, they only projecting 187 students to be included in the transitional kindergarten across the board. And you're talking about we have 53 elementary schools, only 2 of them don't have transitional kindergarten. So this projection at this one school that you're gonna see hundreds of kids, and don't forget, you are not a neighborhood school district. You are a choice district. I don't know how the conversation comes up that because it's a neighborhood school, you can project. You can't project because every parent can choose to go outside of the district. So I'm concerned about the property that you're talking about with the city. I'm going to Public Works tomorrow, and I'm gonna ask them, what are y'all working on with these guys? Because it hasn't been openly discussed. And I'm finished, but I had other stuff, but I don't wanna, you have a lot of stuff to discuss.
Thank you. Anybody else?
There are no further speakers for this item, Chair.
All right, thank you. Right, we go to the next item, which is 260305. This is on the Facilities Master Plan. We have some comments from our ad hoc committee for you, and I appreciate also that the staff took time to meet with us and review, kind of outline your intent, and we had a chance to provide some initial feedback, but we have some written comments for you as well. If you could take us through this presentation, and I think for the purposes of our managing of our time, I would kind of take us through, I think, through the guts of the, what you see as the most important sections. What is it you want to lift up? And I leave it to you to, with that direction,
Yes.
to see what you can do, because I think then we'll have some time for some questions.
There's
Good evening, committee and committee members. I am Pranita Ranbise, Executive Director of Facilities Planning and Management. Really excited to be here and present to you all a draft of our 2026 Facilities Master Plan. In the interest of time, maybe I'll just hit some key highlights and just take about 3 minutes and then open it up for feedback, because we would love to hear from you all. Just as a refresher or a reminder that this is a draft of our 2026 Facilities Master Plan. The intention of bringing a working draft was to, at this stage, to be able to hear your questions, your reactions, get your guidance and feedback, which is critical at this stage when we are finalizing the Facilities Master Plan. The goal for today is just to hear from you all and get your feedback, and more so to hear if the draft master plan is clear and aligned with our district priorities before moving forward to a final presentation to you all, Facilities Committee, and the board in March. This is a long-range, what we've been calling as a long-term planning framework. So it establishes a shared, transparent basis for our decision-making and future facilities investment over time. It does not make a final decision about the projects or other district planning efforts, which there are several initiatives and planning efforts across the district, but this sets a framework to be able to inform those conversations responsibly. It highlights in what you see in the Facilities Master Plan is it's been over a 1-year planning effort. We've had extensive visioning sessions with you all, with Facilities Committee, with our community members, very robust student engagement sessions across over 1 year, which has helped inform what's important to them, what's important to our staff as we start to prioritize initiatives and build that facilities investment framework. Over the last year, we did extensive assessments at our facilities conditions across the district. A new indicator that we have brought to you all as well is an educational adequacy, which the district, as part of the Facilities Master Plan development, this is a newer concept that we're bringing back to see not just what the facilities conditions are, but how our facilities are supporting the programs at those campuses and how it's supporting the students' learning environments and our staff's teaching environments. Additionally, we have also brought in capacity assessments and utilization, and then system deficiencies with a rough order of magnitude costs. So not just costs right now as we see the deficiencies, but costs if you don't do anything, what they would look like by 2040. And then there's also an explicit call out or strategy for our water quality, including the lead and water strategy, mitigation, and long-term management. And also we've included a overall comprehensive framework around enrollment, capacity, demographics, equity considerations, so which includes our unduplicated pupil count, which is essentially our free introduced meal eligible students, unhoused or homeless students. So all of that is lumped into our assessments by campus as well. So it's not just, again, the conditions, but also like what would inform the facilities investment framework in the future. Just a couple or two more things that I would like to highlight. Within the appendix, we have included draft of 3 campuses for you all to see how a school profile would look like with all of these different indicators. And the goal is to have these school profiles included in the next version of our updated draft for every campus across the district. There's also a public-facing dashboard to be able to support all of the data that we're bringing in. It's a lot of information. It's very data-heavy. And so for users to have the flexibility and opportunity to be able to slice and dice data and have a more interactive opportunity to see how to review that information and how to filter out information versus just a PDF or a plan that needs to be printed. And then I think in terms of general framework, one of the frameworks that we have been talking to you all is about what we've been calling as a T-shaped structure or framework, which talks about how you would review decisions around investments for district-wide efforts, and then go into modernization or rebuild or new construction, and what would be some of the criteria driving that decision-making. So again, the master plan in its entirety does include a lot of data and on-the-ground conditions, and then lays out how you can make about decisions moving forward for the future bond, for future capital planning. I think I'll pause with that, and I'm happy to, Mr. Thomas, would you like to add anything?
No, that was great. I think the one thing to Chair Gonzalez, your question is that, like, so if you wanted to skip through, do like a quick, I would focus on the executive summary portion that tries to give an overview of the entire, and then I would skip all the way to the 5th, chapter 5 and chapter 6, which gives recommendations. So like those are the key areas, and that is where the T framework and some of the prioritization that came through the community engagement. But that I would just highlight those areas.
I'm going to read my little report. This is an effort by myself, Andy Nelson, and Andrea to take an early look, because there's often not enough time in these meetings for us to digest this material. So I appreciate the time with staff. And we recognize that the many purposes that you can use this document for, but recognize that it is a requirement for the district to secure matching dollars from the state of California. I'm going to say, and this we said to staff, the document seems kind of wordy, and many of us believe it could be shorter. We don't think the public needs a lesson on box and whisker graphs. You should consider how Sacramento City Unified used its project priority methodology, and we have a reference for that. Questions on working assumptions. We believe the facilities team should explain the rationale for using 600 students as a benchmark. We don't agree that the case has been made that the Oakland Unified can afford in each bond cycle to build 2 new elementary schools, 1 new middle school, and 1 new high school, given the continued rise of costs. Moreover, there are references to Tier 1 versus Tier 2 versus Tier 3 without definition or specificity. So what is the capacity of the OUSD website to provide interactivity? I think you've referenced some of that already. This is unknown to us, but it should provide, we think, an interactive story map on the internet. For Sacramento City Unified had a simple example. An interactive map of schools and their FCI rankings, similar to colored dots shown in the school profiles that have been put into the draft plan, with tables with more detail appearing when a pointer hovers over the dot. This is Andy Nelson's creativity. The dots could be placed over a, did you say chloropleth census tract? I think he was trying to outdo the box and whiskers graph. And yeah, I know they do, but I'm not sure the general public does. Map a percent poverty to provide more neighborhood context. We know districts are too big a geography to offer any neighborhood context. What we see as weaknesses in the executive summary. The executive summary should include a table of proposed criteria to identify major, what is transformative projects, so that executives from whom the summary is intended can see the proposal up front. We want to know how, I think there should be some work in there, and perhaps it is in there because I do feel that the document is dense like fruitcake, okay? There's a lot in there, and sometimes it's hard to see it. How is OUSD going to integrate equity into its decision-making and prioritizing projects? One thought, a recommendation is to create a table of each column, a school with a column for facility condition index and for an equity index. And the suggestion could be that it could be constructed, the equity index could be constructed from the percent LCAP, unduplicated pupil percentage, and a percentage of racial ethnic groups scoring lowest on reading tests and our lowest graduation rates. The index could be one number could be numbers similar like to the FCI. And I've provided an example from the Sacramento City Unified to see what we're talking about. The executive summary should also provide an overall picture of facilities. We think the Facilities Conditions Index is important. We're recommending that a table be constructed that provides a list of all our schools with their index listed. And one reference was to make it up to the 2 decimal points. If you see the Garfield as an example that is used, one of the things that you will note is that it kind of tells you it's deficient and it's got red, but it doesn't really tell you without a specific number. So what we're saying is that consider a table that shows all the districts, including the OUSD charters on district and non-district property. It should give the count of pupils' attendance. There should be a link or reference to Prop 39 explaining how these facilities are funding. There's an example of a table from San Francisco Unified. If we understand correctly, the Facilities Condition Index is the cost of repairs divided by the replacement cost of the buildings. In the examples in the master plan, 2 numbers are provided and then a color is provided, but not the actual numeric value. And so we have suggestions what the table could include, but I think for you in facilities, I think you know what we're talking about. Name of school, facility condition index, year built, square footage, number of pupils, campus requirements, and so on. And what if most of the schools have these index greater than 0.6, so they're all on red, for example? So I think trying to get a numeric value there would make a difference. The profile examples should come from different districts within OUSD. A suggestion might be Roosevelt might be a good profile. It is under construction, but it is not a campus-wide modernization. It would be invaluable to see how a project already approved and continues as a work in progress could be captured. We understand that more considerations will be raised as we continue to work together, and we look forward to a productive process. So those are our comments in general, and then some of our members have more specific comments. Who else would like to go next?
Well, I mean, okay, the first comment is I keep coming back to the 3 bond cycles and what we would really accomplish in that statement, because if you take 2 elementary schools at 100 million, that's the number for, Garfield, and you have a middle school at 120 million, and you have a high school at 218 million, that's Skyline, you have $520 million at today's rate. So if you're going to pass a bond for 800 million, you've got 300 million over 3 bond cycles. Let's just talk about today. If you do that 3 times, you have $900 million to take care of all the other campuses district-wide. I just think that I'd like to know really where that statement comes from and how it basically, there's a perception that you'll be taking care of everything and there won't be future bond cycles, I think, because it says you would catch up, with maintenance and everything. I feel like there needs to be further explanation on that, or explain it in a different way so it leaves the door open for it's not going to be that way, because we don't know what escalation is in 15 years from now. So all those schools in a bond cycle could cost $700 million. And I'm not sure we're going to be passing bigger and bigger bonds as we go into the future. I don't. There's a level of what the taxpayers and the tax base will support. So
Do you want us to respond to any, or wait till the end? Yep. Yeah, one thing I just want to because I think you're talking about the table on page 13 that one of the things that we wanted to get away from was just thinking about one bond at a time. And one of the things, when you look historically, you would say that essentially this bond particularly has a deep focus around high school and middle school students. And the way that I would say that is that you have a large facility project at McClimlands, you have a large facility project at Roosevelt, you have a large facility project at CCPA, which is addressing middle school and high school. You have the MLA project that addresses predominantly the middle school expansion in the portables, and then you do have the Garfield project. But you also had Claremont, and you also have Garfield as an elementary project. And so one of the things that when you look at the history and where the district will likely need to invest, you have many small elementary schools. You can't afford to just keep doing small things at each elementary school. You need to think about resizing towards elementary. And so I totally appreciate the feedback around the size, because it is one of the things after we heard it, we do need to actually articulate why that is. And I'll just share, and we could show you this analysis for Garfield, what most school districts are doing whenever whether it's a modernization or whether it is a rebuild of a school site. They're building around 3 cohorts of students minimum going through that school, right? And what that means is 3 kindergarten classes. I'll just start at kindergarten because that's traditionally where we start, right? Because you have 3 teachers at that grade level that can collaborate, plan together. There's some level of redundancy that goes on. They move up to 3 first grades, 3 second grades, all the way through the school. That allows you to build some of the resources like the community schools, like kind of model. When you are small, you don't do that. So like our recommendation, and this is what is baked into it, is that you actually use your bond program to think about the long-term structure that you want in the district that's going to support the programming, right? And so with this current program, what the current bond is saying is that McClimlands will be the signature piece in West Oakland as a high school in that neighborhood of 650, right? And right now there's currently 853 students that are of high school age in District 3, in the McClimlands attendance area, right? Roosevelt will be your future cornerstone in the heart of District 2 that Garfield feeds into, right? So like we would really encourage around this, and this is just a framework for it, right? Is that you're utilizing the bottom part of the T, you're looking at going deep in 5 sites, right? Generally speaking, a middle school, a high school, and 2 elementary schools in each bond cycle. It doesn't necessarily have to be a rebuild. It could be a modernization plus. But trying to utilize this conversation and the bond program to begin right-sizing the future district so that it provides the programming elements that the district is trying to provide to every student. And there may be some opportunities out there to merge multiple campuses together in a new facility, those types of ideas. Now, the top part of the T, which is the way this current bond is structured, is to allow you to go deep, and all the safety investments have happened across every school, right? There are certain improvements that we are trying to do. The playgrounds are one that is definitely the upgrading the playgrounds. So there is and I would just point out I think it's in the fifth section, it shows what those tiers are and what the priorities of the community have been through engagement. That tells you how those dollars should be invested in the top part of the T. And the number one area is heat mitigation and classroom comfort, which we've heard across the system. So it's a little bit of both, and I love the feedback around the variables that we should include. And I think equity, one of the things that's interesting about and I'm glad that you brought up the Sacramento example. 2 last comments that I'll just make. One, the Sacramento plan does actually perpetuate the status quo in terms of the number of schools they're operating, And they split a lot of the money across many schools, and that's a decision that the board needs to have around how do you want to structure the bond to do that differently. The second piece around kind of this framework, oh man, I just lost it. I'll come back to it. I know it'll reemerge around kind of this piece, but I think you do want to be, Oakland is, one of the reasons why there's not a project list is because there is no new money right now. Right? There is no new money coming in. That would come in the next natural cycle, would be 2028, if you look at the history of the bond program in Oakland. So,
Well, I just want to say Sacramento City has way less schools for the same population. So that is a different dynamic. It's like apples and oranges as far as, but I think your point about the district, the community's highest priorities needs to be, that sheet and your statement about the bond cycle needs to come together. They should not be, 3 pages or 5 pages apart. That's all in one. To me, that is the story right there, okay? It's what the community wants and what you think the cost to bear that. And so I just think that chart is, for lack of better words, simplistic and not realistic, really. And we're going to have bonds, I hope, long after I'm gone, for my great-grandchildren, right? So there's that. And so I think that's my point on that.
Yeah, kind of a lot to say. So when I looked at this, I thought of it as like it's called a plan, but as you stated a few times in here, it's a tool for decision making, as it should be, right? Like the real reason why there's not a project list is because that's not a decision that gets made. That gets made by the board through a very interesting political process, but it's a decision that gets made by the board. And actually this document to me, and it's a document, but this is going to get to my point. I think this really needs to be designed to be thought of as an interactive piece on the web, mainly. The reason, and so that it can be a tool for decision making for folks who got a lot of other stuff on their mind and just want to be able to find what they need quickly and not have to really dig through 103 pages. Like I say 103 pages because on page 103, I think, is where we finally see the criteria to be used to identify transformative projects. And so you should just say up front what you think that is. That's your proposal, by the way, that's in here. So that's one thing. I also think that it would be really important to have, well, this was in a report, but this is, I'm going to have to talk about Coropleth now because you read it out. So basically, the job of the school district is to do a better job of teaching our kids. The kids, particularly the kids that we know we're not serving well, right? And so you got equity in here, I think 35 times. I just as soon never hear that word again in my life. But there are kids that we're not serving well that we ought to be serving better, right? And so we could construct an index, just like you have a facilities condition index of who goes to those schools and what's the need in those schools, and you could use unduplicated pupil count, you could use the LCAP categories, you could use the racial and ethnic composition of kids that are either not graduating or not reading well. So what the hell do I mean by Coropleth? So basically, the other piece you want to have is so you could do that you need that in a table. When you have a table of facilities condition index, you could have the equity index, all right? So you can look at that and you can see what a school's condition is, and then you might even have a column about educational, like, adequacy and a specific sort of we might, I won't dig into that too deep right now, but that would be helpful, right? The other thing is that then I think you should have a map, a Coropleth map. And what that means is that you would have a map that would have census tracts across the city. Census tracts for folks, as little chunks of geography that's about 4,000 or 5,000 people each. And the reason to have it, the reason why you want to look, what I'm going to suggest is that you could do something like poverty rates or something that gives you an indication of what's going on in the neighborhood. And the reason why you want to have that level of geography, like you want to look at 4,000 or 5,000 people, is because if you look at districts, you know, you're looking at, you know, skyline to the flats, and you're not really capturing any real information about a neighborhood. So what Choropleth means is that you'd have a different shades of color for the census tracts, and you could look at that map, and you could see the neighborhood context, and then you could see each school, and you could see what the facilities condition index was in that school, because you could have certain colored dots, just like you have in the thing now. So that's what I would suggest is a map like that. I think would love to see some work on this equity index so that we can actually start to, you know, build, you know, I work in equity, so, but the point is you got to build it in up front. You know, it has to be key to your planning. Everything has to be sort of built around the goal that you're trying to accomplish. Is we're trying to do better at teaching our kids, man. So I really want us to think about how this fits into that kind of an overview. I might say other things too, but I think this document like veered close, really, you know, was really touching the fine line between being a decision-making tool and a planning document. And I get some of that. I could have done without all the lecturing about how to close schools, quite frankly. I'm sure somebody directed somebody to put that in there, but that's not the job of this. That's not the job of the facilities department. That's a school district decision. So I'm going to say that. And you know, this thing could have been, well, for my purposes, this could have been an email. No, this could have been like 25. This could have been much shorter. And I really would like us to think about how we're going to load this up on the web and make it interactive in a way that, you know, it's useful for not for the public and for decision makers who are going to want to look at it. So that I think I have one more thing to say. We never planned for how we're going to serve our continuation students, and that's not in here anywhere. And it has never been in a bond that I can remember in OUSD. Never. And so they're in horrible facilities, and I guess we're planning on, they really, you know, we really don't want to look at them. We really want to pretend like they don't exist. That's a significant chunk of young people. We don't do right by our transitional age youth, and never have in this district, and especially since we know, you know, as long as we're continuing to not serve our students well, we're going to continue to have kids in continuation school and with those needs. And so I really just want to make that statement. I would love to see some planning, since we're planning around what we're going to do about our kids, young people who are going to need continuation school services and transitional age youth services. Thank you.
Thank you, Andy.
Can I just add, I remembered the one thing and you said it. One of the ways, while this document is robust and there's lots of levels, the way it was structured is so these areas could be pulled out for an interactive web tool. So that you wouldn't, because I've watched the district as the board has like considered things to not be able to have the narrative and the words that go along with it. So in these areas, there can be dashboards designed to support the type of analysis, but with the context as well built in so that you understand it. So when you look at some of these areas, there is the ability to pull certain sections of this out and map it out to dashboards. So that's the part that will come. But we wanted to make sure the narrative was there as well. So they do go hand in hand.
Okay, thank you. I just want to say I appreciate the insights of my colleagues. I really do. I don't have a question. It's more of an observation. And I think for me, like, I understand our purview here as a member of the CBOC, right? And in a lot of ways, right, the work that you all have to do, right? What frustrates me is it seems like there's a need for greater integration, right? And I think on the forefront, right, before these bond measures are passed, thinking through some of these things so that way we won't repeat the same mistakes. Because I see there's a tendency we repeat, right? Then we it's a cycle, right? Then we get frustrated, and then we go fix it by doing the same whatever process it was that got us here. And something in particular that I just want to share with the group. Just to your point about feeders, because I get, schools were designed to be feeders, but the reality is for my son who's a 5th grader, when I clicked the link, Roosevelt did not come up first or second. It was charter schools. I don't understand why that happened. I'm not saying, I just think that we need to be thinking as we're discussing what we're saying, does it match the reality of what's happening? Because I'm like, I don't even recognize you. Like, where's these schools? I'm looking for Roosevelt. I have to actually, because they give you 3. I had to force it in there, right? So that's what I mean by it's great. We can sit here and we can talk about these things, but somebody needs to be looking in real time at these systems. Are they operating the way that we assume them to be? Are they even operating the way they're designed to be? Or is it's just doing whatever, right? And just the last thing I throw out there again, I think that when I went to school, it wasn't open schools, right? You went to the school in your neighborhood. I understood why people wanted to change that. And I just want to say, look, times have changed, right? It was a different era. I understand that, but we just got to be realistic, right? Because if you look at Skyline in the current condition, just to be real, right? And a lot of students I know we work with can't get there because they're coming from the flatlands in deep East Oakland, taking 2-3 buses. So I just think that moving forward, we just got to look at what's actually working and does it make sense. Right. Because at the end of the day, I get it, but at the end of the day, every school should be functioning at a high level. No parent should feel like I got to keep my school way over here just to get the services that you should be able to get right there. So in conclusion, I want to bring back the concept of neighborhood schools because our children are our future in the present, and it starts there, right? Children should feel that they matter, right? You go to school where it's convenient at, where you're growing up with your friends, because it ain't just the academics, right? That's where they learn that's where they socialize. They learn social skills. And it should be, restore that pride. It should be pride, right? It should be that connection. So I just want to throw that as an observation. I appreciate that. And for me, I appreciate this report. I just say sometimes for me it's frustrating because, again, I know our purview, but it's like, this is a real thing over here. Like, you can't tell me don't look behind the curtain, and I know who's behind that curtain, just as an example. But so I thank you all, though.
I just want to clarify something. So there's 2 competing websites. One is Choose OUSD. That is the district website. And there's Oakland Enrolls, which does include charters that is not operated by the district. So you may have been on because there's no way to access, I just want to make sure, on OUSD's option, there is not a way to access charters through that. So I just check that website, then follow up with me on it, because I want to make sure that we're clear on where the district website points you to. So thank you for lifting that up.
Well, I want to start off just by thanking everyone who worked, because I know it's a mountain of work to do these, and I don't want us to sound ungrateful. But I'm also very grateful to my colleagues for all sitting down and writing up. Gosh, this is like a volunteer job, you guys. This is amazing. I did want to, I think if there's one piece of feedback that I just want to double down on, it's that having the red circle that just says deficient, it needs to be 2 decimal points just in that circle, because most of our circles, sadly, in OUSD are going to be red circles deficient. And so looking through the report is not going to be that useful. The other thing I want to say is I hear what people are saying about here's another 100-page report. I saw Public Works report come and go on the board. So how many times do these reports just sit on the shelf versus how often are they actually useful? And I know for the 2020 master plan, because it was kind of half a page or a page on each school, I never used it. What I would go to, and because it was still up on the web for a long time, and it was also to that point about interactive web, I think it was the 2012? The 2012 one, and it had maps, it had floor plans for each school, it had details about the square footage, you could see different classrooms, and so I can't tell you the number of times a school would come up and I'd be like, oh, let me visualize that school and how its layout is. I'd pull up the 2012 master plan, and the 2020 master plan was useless. So I think to the degree, I hope there's going to be more than just this one page on each school, because it needs to have, the 2021, that was all there was, and it wasn't particularly useful as a planning tool.
We still have a couple of items on our agenda, so have we beat this? Have we bit this out? Are we done with this one? Okay. Thank you. Thanks to staff, very patient with us, and I think we're all trying to work together to provide a better tool and kind of learn together here and work together. Well, thank you.
Yes, Asada Olugbala.
Okay, y'all got 15 minutes. So all the way up to page 84 of this document, you're doing community outreach and data review. Then on page 88, you look at your focus improvements, but you don't name what they are. Then you go to page 92, and you're focusing on projects, but you don't say what you're naming projects, but you're not saying what you're going to do with the projects. On page 96, you go on how you make decisions, but you don't say what decisions you're going to make. On page 100, that's when you get to your recommendations, and you have 3 pages. You go up to 112 on recommendations, 3 recommendations. Page 116 starts your appendix. That's too much of what is supposed to be a master plan. It's just too much. And then one of the board members said that this master plan was supposed to be done some time ago, and it's late. So you don't have to have that conversation, but that's being said at the board meetings, that the master plan is not on time.
Is that all for comments?
Yes, Madam Chair.
All right. Okay, thank you very much. We go to item G3260315. This is a report on our budget reconciliations as of December 31st, 2025. Can you just tell us what we have in front of us? And
Yeah, I was just going to request, Mr. Aze couldn't be here, our facilities director for accounting. So I was going to request that the committee would consider moving the item to the next meeting.
does anybody have any specific questions to direct to,
Yeah. I'm happy to take back questions and
Yeah.
bring them back to you.
that want to direct back to him?
I can describe what the document are if, yeah, they're, yeah.
Yes.
I still have, I have one comment, and it comes back to the Garfield contract for the architect. And I'm not picking on these architects. They're actually a very good firm. It's not personal, but it shows the $8.5 million in this budget reconciliation on December 31, and it's going to the board Wednesday night, I think. So I take it they're already working to this new contract. I mean, huh? 'Cause it's,
Good evening. And David Colbert is also online to answer this, but if needed. But they are not. They had an existing contract with us. They are performing some work under that previous contract, but they have not begun work on the portion of the contract that's yet to be board approved.
okay, but I mean, but it's being reported in December.
I recognize that
So
error.
that's the thing.
Yeah, that's incorrect.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
being reported. in
We will get that corrected.
Yeah.
Thank you for finding that.
Yeah, so anything like that in these documents, I think it should, it would be better to have footnotes that say we're expecting, an amendment to a contract in here, because we want to know that too, because one of the things, these contract changes are actually supposed to come before us just so we can weigh in on them. That's what our, the board, our bylaws say, and that doesn't work in real time. But you can still be reporting to us in real time, or what you know is forthcoming, so I think that would be helpful, and I think it would be helpful to the Facilities Committee, too.
Thank you
Yeah.
for calling that out, and
Yeah.
we'll make sure we follow that process.
No, well, for me, that's it.
Yes, well, for the record, the item is being postponed until the next regular meeting? Correct. I was just stating for the record what's going on with the item, but it's Asada Olugbala.
Okay, very quickly, the McClimlands Project, they gave out this at the last board meeting. It's absolutely ridiculous. The project plan they started planning for this project in the third quarter, June, July of 2021, with a construction start date of 2024. It was changed to begin in 2025. Now it's changed again to begin in the spring of 2026 with a completion date of 2028. It was supposed to, as of spring of 2025, it was supposed to be completed in 2027. And they moved the students in the middle of the summer. They moved to half of the school. Right now, they're still sitting in half of the school with no access to the auditorium, no access to the library. The soil contaminant, as of early 2026, we're dealing with soil and environmental contamination of TCE and lead. And we have nothing being done to remediate. And we were supposed to start in the summer to have the football field turf redone. Nothing happened. So this is a joke. It's a disgrace. And I've been telling y'all, it's gotten to the point where I'm saying close the school. You have no intention, nobody's intersecting, nobody's saying anything. It's just disrespectful and unacceptable. Close the school. You have no respect for African American children at McClimlands. We have no safety because the intercom system is not accessible. Anybody, in order for you to come in, they have to open the door. They can't ask who is there. So I will continue to say this. I'll say it Wednesday. Nothing's happening. And this plan to start, and they say it might not start in the spring of 2026.
Thank you. You have a question? Yeah.
Yeah, can you speak to that? Because I've been out of the loop, so I'm curious where.
Can you do it after the meeting, talk to him? Because y'all got to get out.
No, I want to know what's going on with Mac. So.
Yeah.
Okay, can you do it after the meeting, though?
I'd like it on the record.
We have enough time.
Yeah.
We have enough time.
I'd like it on the record.
We have enough time.
Sena Hayes is here to talk a little bit about, she's been monitoring the McClimlands Project.
Good evening, everyone. Sena Hayes, I'm Executive Director of Construction. I'm pleased to share a brief update on the current activities related to the McClimlands Project. We have been deeply delayed in this project. We submitted our plans to the DSA in February of 2025, expecting that it would take about 6 months, which is our usual timeline. And we are finally scheduled for our last appointment before back check, which is slang, our final appointment with the reviewers for February 24th. So I will be there in person with our design teams to receive final back and forth, the final comments from the state reviewers. And we are anticipating that they will sign off and stamp our plans, if not that day, shortly after. We have been working with our design build team to do as much as we can to be ready to move forward following that approval, including working to schedule the pre-bid walks with subcontractors who will be bidding on this work, so that we can move forward with bringing a final agreement to the board for approval in hopefully in April. Yep, hopefully in April. We are really working every day to try to mitigate the impacts of this delay on the school community. We have hosted we were doing bi-monthly, and now we're doing monthly community meetings on site. And we are working to be in communication with the principal and the staff. We presented to the staff on January 21st about the plans, and trying to stay in communication with the school community as much as we can to keep them updated on this very prolonged process. And we really do look forward to breaking ground as soon as we can, so that the school community has the school that it deserves to have. On a personal note, my father taught at McClimlands. The health clinic there is named for him, and it means a great deal to me to be able to work on this project and to be able to deliver it for the community, who has communicated with us how important it is to have this project be seen through. And so I appreciate the support of the CBOC to ensure that we continue and hold us accountable for continuing to deliver on our promise to these students and their families.
You're going to tell about the order of issue that you applied for.
Thank you. Are there any other, are there any other questions? Yes, sir.
When do we have a site visit at McClimlands?
I believe next month is your McClimlands site visit. We won't have active construction, so you don't have to wear hard hats. But we're happy. It might be April. I apologize. I believe it's in the next couple months.
Do you remember when our site visit is to McClimlands?
Not off the top, but I can look it up.
Okay, it's in a couple of months, 1 or 2 months. Okay.
It will be,
Yes.
it looks like you all go on the 6th of March to McClimlands.
Okay.
Oh, there we go.
Thank you.
Thank you.
No further public comments, Mr. Chair.
Sorry, on item 260344, the facility site visit for the Roosevelt. Do we have any comments around that? Yes, sir, start, keep us.
Thank you. Two quick ones. The first one is, I don't know if this is a question or might be a comment, a question and a comment. I'm struggling with, okay, so the auditorium, right? So for me, when information is communicated to the community, right, there's renovation. So there's an implied assumption that everything in there is going to get, that needs to be renovated, is going to get renovated. And the auditorium is not happening. And it's like, it's a waste, because I look at it and, I saw it to my mom. My mother went to Roosevelt, right? So she's like, hey, send me pictures. I was telling her about the auditorium. She's like, that was nice. How's it look now? I'm like, not so much. So I'm just curious, like, I don't, again, it goes back to when these bond measures are being put together, what the focus are, why things are left off, and what does that communication look like? Because to me, it's just, because I'll be honest, and it's not, I'm not saying it's intentional, but I get why we can say, like, why our schools look like this and other schools don't. Like, it's just unconscionable that there's an auditorium there, and it's just, so I don't know if y'all have a thought on that. I don't know if you can even extrapolate a question out of that, but it's just observation. I just think that at the end of the day, what I'm always hearing, I think communication goes a long way. Even if we're not, even if whatever decision made or not being made, even if we're upset with that, I think it's helpful to have the communication. And then the same thing I would say is colors. Oh wait, somebody gonna say something?
Yeah, okay. I just wanted to. I'll let you finish, but I didn't know, Preston, if you wanted to chime in. But I did want to say something to that, Member Jones, because I know I've explained that specific type of kind of scenario to you all multiple times, that we're at a snapshot, we're at a moment in time where the decision was made years ago, and when that information was brought forward, perhaps you weren't part of the committee. I can't remember, because Roosevelt similarly to some of the other projects, the way the scoping came forward, we did explain to CBOC as well as to Facilities Committee that it would be certain parts of the campus, as well as this committee has taken site visits to Roosevelt as well, and it was explained to them then. So overall, I would say, for the most part, the department does a good job of expressing when these types of things are going to happen. And so I would just offer that try as best as possible to maybe, and again, you may not have been part of the committee at the time. So just try to remember that we do bring information at a moment in time from previous years. And then a lot of years go by, and then that information may not be at the forefront. So that's what I would offer. I do know that we brought specific to that auditorium because it was a controversial decision at the time, and it remains one.
We have a couple of minutes. Please.
Yeah, we do want to get to Cole, but I just want to say one thing about this. We should paint everything. That's paint is cheap, and even if we only do half of a school, we should paint at a minimum the classrooms and the corridors, because it makes people think they really got something, and it's really a great value to the students and the staff there. The second thing is, I think we really should have revisited the auditorium, because it is so far out of compliance ADA-wise that that's a potential for risk there, lawsuit risk. And I will just say that San Francisco Unified got sued doing modernizations and not addressing an accessibility issue in there. And I know that you probably applied for a hardship because it's a big deal. It's not a simple fix in that auditorium to make part of it accessible. But you don't even have a lift to go up to the stage. And the ramp is so far out of compliance that someone would have to push a student up. And I'm concerned about it, actually, that you've done all that work, and that piece of the auditorium was, I think, probably DSA allowed a hardship because you said you were doing nothing, but I'm not so sure that was a good move.
I think overall, I was very happy to have gone to the site visit, because the last time I was able to attend, it was still in a plan, like the way we're going to go to in West Oakland. You have a lot of ideas, you haven't seen what you're talking about. Now we've made some progress, and you see now what the plan looks more, it's more tangible. But, yes, it was disappointing to go to this beautiful auditorium, the vintage, and to see that it's got a lot of possibilities in there, and maybe there's another way to fix it. I don't know, but it's really a lovely spot that's sort of hidden. It's a little hidden gem within our school district. So if there isn't anything else, I'd like to move us to the next item.
Do you mind if I
We
make
have after public comments.
one
Yes.
quick comment
Yeah.
to kind of tie together the comments? I think it's not just the auditorium. There are other areas from the Roosevelt project, and this is why the planning is so critical on the front side to spec out. And the item earlier today about Garfield is a place where we're trying to pivot around that. Because I just want to name the areas. The gym is not getting touched. That's why we partnered with Under Armour to redo the floor in the gym, because we knew it wasn't going to be included. Also, the cafeteria isn't included. And so, the roof over the cafeteria is not included. So there are some areas in this project that definitely need to get addressed, and we should be considering it. And this is why the framework is so important in the master plan around making sure that when we're speccing out what a project does, it includes all the critical points. And so just, we've added to other projects as well. And so I just wanted to name, the project was conceived a long ago, and we're going to do our best to kind of serve all the areas, but, the project is where it is right now. And so, I just wanted to name that. Yeah.
Okay, quick.
Thank you. I just, as a reminder, I just want to remind folks always that parents don't always have the privilege to follow these meetings. So a lot of times the stuff I'm speaking about is from a perspective of a parent who may hear about things, but they don't have the opportunity to get the full details. So I just want to make that clear.
Do you have any comments?
Yes, Chair. Sada Olagbala.
All right, give her a minute. Do you have any comments, ma'am? Okay, all right,
There are no further speakers, Chair.
all right. On G5, 260348, Marcus Foster Leadership Center, the first floor permit. This is around 1025 Second Avenue demolition project. We had requested a verbal report on the status of those two things, and if we could have staff reply. Thank you very much.
Good evening. Good to see you again. I'll start with the permits for the Marcus Foster site. I can report that the first floor is permitted as a shell space right now, completely unfinished, 0 occupancy besides the lobby and the data center. Any other use will need to go through a full design and permitting process. And the initial building was developed under the jurisdiction of the Division of State Architects because it was a previous school campus, and we wanted to ensure that the space could be used for students if needed in the future, which we would need to go to DSA for that. So that is the current status of the permit for the building.
So you're saying that it can't be used for any assembly space?
Not today.
Because legally you can't put people in?
Correct.
Because of fire life safety?
Because we submitted the plans with it empty, and that was what was approved.
So in other words, you submitted it as storage? That's really,
0 occupancy shell space.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, so that's what I wanted to hear for the last 3 or 4 months. I mean, because that's the truth, which means we're gonna have to spend money there to do something.
Yep.
And that's why we're not using it.
Correct.
And so, I mean, this is just the transparency we would like here, okay? So, yeah.
Thank you. Okay, all right. The update on 1025 Second Avenue. So a brief update on the implementation of the Board of Directors resolution to demolish the structures at 1025. We are in the planning phase for the demolition. We are developing RFPs and RFQs for the required professional services that would allow us to proceed. And just to reiterate that the buildings right now are red tagged by the fire department, and they've been identified as structurally unsound. And they've also been classified by the city as part of their historical classifications as B-rated or Category 1 historic properties. So we are subject to some additional city requirements, and we are working to ensure that we meet those as we plan for the demolition. So those are all of the city's requirements are incorporated in our planning process. We are in parallel moving forward with a feasibility study that will evaluate potential future uses of the site, so that we have that in mind as we're moving forward. And a specific demolition schedule hasn't yet been established because we are still moving in this planning phase, but we'll continue to keep you informed on that as the work progresses and we reach milestones in that. So happy to answer any questions. Also, my colleague is here as well.
Thank you. Because of the city's historical classification, which is not a state designation, my understanding is that, correct me if I'm wrong, but that you have to submit to the city what's the next use of the property or the building going to be, and yet we're doing a feasibility study to determine what that's going to be. So what are we telling the city? So what are we telling the city we're going to do with it? And how quickly are we going to get through that process to tear it down? And then also, we got to go to CEQA on this?
So I will invite my colleague forward to explain how these two projects, the feasibility study and the demolition, are connected. But we are planning for potential CEQA review. Yeah.
So as part of the city's requirement, there are these 4 findings. One of them is to provide a quality of replacement design, which means they need to know in the future what is the planned development of their property. That's part of the feasibility studies. We're evaluating the feasibility of 2 to 3 different development options and what it would mean to be able to develop those plans moving forward. And so for the city's requirement, this is where we need to closely coordinate with the cities to be able to show that work is happening in parallel as we continue to pursue and move forward with the demolition process.
You have to tell the city what the next use of this project is going to be.
Correct.
Are you saying we have to wait for the feasibility study to be done to tell them that?
I don't think we need to wait for the feasibility study to be complete. As long as we're able to show there is a plan and process to be able to evaluate the feasibility, we have already in the resolution narrowed down what potential options we would like to consider.
So what are those options?
So we have 3 combinations of developments that we're considering. One is workforce housing, there's affordable housing, and then the transitional youth housing, the TAY hub.
And so you're going to tell the city, we're going to do one of these 3 things, and that's we thinking that's going to be sufficient to get them to move off the dime on the historical piece.
Yes. Yes.
When's that going to happen?
The feasibility study is
Not the feasibility. I'm sorry. It's late. I don't want to. But no, I'm not asking about when the feasibility. I have a whole another set of questions about that. But I'm asking about when. So when are we going to tell the city? When are we going to clear this hurdle so that we can move on to get, I guess, I hope an egg deck with CEQA or something, but when are we going to clear this hurdle with the city?
That is a conversation we're yet to have with the city. That's what we're coordinating on what the timelines would look like on when they need to see this information.
So a little more clarity. As I understand it, they just need to understand that you're going to put a 55,000 square foot 6-story building there or something similar to that, and it's going to be one of these 3 issues, right? It doesn't need to be this design. It's really, it can be verbal. Is that correct?
Yes. I can read the requirement in 30 seconds. Demonstrate that the replacement project is of equal or superior design quality to the historic building. Just demonstrate.
Okay.
And can I just add, also an important variable is the board has already declared this through action, through the feasibility study, identifying these 3 elements, so we can include it. The second piece of it also is you don't have any dedicated funding to rehabilitate the current project. So there's not dedicated funding that exists to deal with both blighted, red tagged buildings as well, which is also an important variable that the city will consider. So we're just figuring out those timelines with the city, so I just wanted to name that in terms of the overall process.
Sam, you have a question?
No, it's more of a statement. I think just the board has expressed in numerous resolutions very clear intention for the future use of that building as the TAY hub. So I don't, in terms of, yes, there are feasibility studies and the board can always change its mind about the future use of the facility, but there is already a future plan for the facility that's been affirmed in numerous resolutions. So
Yes.
just given that that's come up before.
Do we have any?
Sada Olugbala.
1 minute?
So, Mr. Davis, you know what a feasibility study is. And I think you know too, because the way you're asking questions. But with a feasibility study, you have a proposed project, and then you determine the worth of that proposed project. And you look at things like technical, economic, operational factors, the strengths and weaknesses of the proposed project, the risk of the proposed project. So what you have here, you don't have a proposed project. You have 3 different considerations. That's not a feasibility. And you have bunch included in this that is a toxic site for which we have no clue if we could ever use it for anything. So I don't understand. I do know why we're doing this, but y'all can discuss that later. But this is not the way a feasibility study is done. And why they're doing it this way? Because people have a concept of what they want the property to be used for some affordable housing for youth over here across the street. And we can't continue to do business like this. We got so many, $700,000 for a feasibility study. And what can be done to remediate the lead that we don't have enough that could have been used for that?
There are no further public comments for this item.
All
Chair.
right. Then the next one is public comments on all non-agenda items. All right. 260286. Do we have any?
There are no public comments for this item. Chair.
All right. On the item of introduction of new legislative matter, are there any issues here from the committee members? Yes.
Can we do it the way we normally do it and send you thoughts on what we would like on the next agenda?
Yes.
Well, I mean, one of them's carried over, and that's the, and an update on the master plan. I mean, I think that should be ongoing.
Okay.
I'm not going to belabor the point at this late date, but I do think it's important that we state publicly what we want to have on the next agenda
So
going
update-
forward.
Okay,
Yeah,
so,
okay.
so let's just list it. So we want to continue the update on the master plan. We have an item that is, we didn't address this, that's kind of going forward. Is there anything else?
Yeah,
There
the
have been some-
feasibility study.
You want a feasibility study, where the status of that is? There was something else that we had discussed, I forget. I lost a train of thought. Ouch. Okay, I believe feasibility study was one. I think we've gotten the responses on 1025. Do you think many of the outstanding objects would be raised within that report by the, on the projects in any case? Probably? Yeah, I can't either. Okay, but we have those three, the update on the master plan and the unfinished business and the feasibility studies, status of that, right? Okay. By acclamation, may I adjourn? All right. Thank you very much. Oh, oops, that's.